Welcome back to Squawk on the Street. Jim, we had an interesting week last week. Of course, we missed you, but we were able to visit with the CEOs of the three major wireless carriers, as I assume you know, and all of them talking, of course, around the purchase of C-band spectrum. Enormous purchases, of course. I mean, if Verizon announced that they were doing a $53 billion acquisition, we'd be talking about it for weeks. They spent $53 billion buying C-band spectrum, of course, to enhance their ability to offer 5G. AT&T coming in at 27.4, and then T-Mobile, of course, a much more modest $10.5 billion. But we were able to have John Stankey from AT&T, Mike Sievert from T-Mobile, and Hans Vestberg from Verizon join us last week to sort of talk about this. Now, with Stankey, as you might imagine, there's a lot to talk about. There's the balance sheet of the company being pulled in a lot of different directions, and the question as to whether it can withstand all of that tension as it invests in HBO Max and has pretty aggressive targets in terms of subscriber growth over the next 4 years, as it invests in the C-band and expanding it and making 5G available everywhere robustly, as it pays its dividend and so forth. And can it continue to invest in growth initiatives? Stankey says, yeah, we can. We also, of course, talked a lot about C-band and what it represents for that company and for the country overall in terms of what we're going to be able to do years from now. Take a listen to Stankey as he sort of talks about these auctions and the importance that they have over time for these companies.
Having been through a number of these auctions, they're always repeating themselves. You kind of go through them and you end up investing a little bit more than you thought you might have to or you really wanted to. The appetite for customers to use the service more as it becomes more capable always seems to open up opportunity, and I think it's going to be the same in this case.
Of course, you think about 4G and the opportunities, for example, Uber, just one there, and what that created and the businesses that are able to be created. We don't know yet what that will mean for 5G, but there is a debate raging, and of course, as you might imagine, T-Mobile and Verizon kind of at it. T-Mobile always liking, it's not John Ledger anymore, but Sievert sort of likes to try to antagonize a bit too. And the question for Hans Vestberg that I put to him is one that is being asked by a lot of people who follow this closely, which is essentially, you've bought all the spectrum, but is it going to require you to put up more cell sites and more uplink spectrum? In other words, do you have to spend a lot more to densify your network? Here's what Vestberg said, and then take a listen to Sievert responding to Vestberg's answer.
We have the most dense network already. We have the best 4G network in the nation. The mid-band that we are buying is the best mid-band spectrum in the market. With the position we have right now, with the network, with the team, with the go-to-market, with the new services, and with the spectrum position, I think we are in an extremely good position to extend our lead in this market.
He can either choose not to densify, which sounds like the plan, which means they won't have a competitive product. Or they can spend tens of billions of dollars densifying and eventually arrive with a competitive product. That's just a choice. And so I think what we heard yesterday is what his choice is. And it's a great situation for future T-Mobile customers and businesses.
All right, Jim, you mentioned T-Mobile earlier. Of the group, is that your favorite?
Oh, by far. And I think that one look at the Craig Moffett map this morning from Moffett-Nathanson just shows you that T-Mobile the coverage is extraordinary versus Verizon, versus AT&T, a little bit less. But one thing I'll tell you, David, the stocks that are involved in towers have been among the worst in the marketplace. Now, some people say that's because the real estate investment trusts and interest rates have moved up. But then utilities started going up last week, the stocks. No, not these stocks. They are saying, David, forget about it. That AT&T and Verizon don't have enough money to be able to build out
or to Vestberg are not going to need to densify as much as Sievert would said they will need to deliver the service they say they will.
Well, I hope so. I mean, but when I look at these things, I say, why am I still with Verizon? And when I look at the coverage is rather extraordinary. The deal that T-Mobile did with Sprint, in retrospect, David, was a complete home run. And T-Mobile is his stock just goes higher and higher. Why? Because they've got the best 5G coverage. It turns out to be very, very valuable as a way to sell.
Although it's interesting when you look at their revenue projections, and I asked Sievert about this, I think it was Friday when he joined us. I mean, they're only around 4% revenue growth. Now, he said, well, we're trying to underpromise is kind of what his answer was. But that's not much more than Verizon, what Verizon's setting out. So, you do wonder if all these things kind of revert to the mean eventually.
Well, I got to tell you, Carl, when I look at T-Mobile and I look at the others, I just think, well, the others are these income bets. Verizon seems to, obviously has a better balance sheet. You'll be reaching for income for AT&T. T-Mobile is a legitimate growth stock, and I understand the 4% to me is under. That is very much under promise. We're going to be talking about a company that overpromised later on when I get to hopefully to my mad dash, because I became a victim of the overpromise, and it's a little bit of a tease, but that is not what we're getting from T-Mobile.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.